Nia Washington's hands trembled as she stared at the papers scattered across Jonathan Reed's mahogany desk. The numbers didn't lie. For 3 years, she had cleaned this study every Tuesday morning, but today something had fallen from behind the desk drawer. Financial records. Payroll documents. Her stomach dropped as she read the amounts. The staff was supposed to earn $15 per hour. The records showed payments of $15 per hour to the household management company. But Nia and the other maids only received $8 per hour. Someone was pocketing $7 from every hour they worked. She photographed the documents with shaking fingers, her heart pounding as footsteps echoed in the hallway. Quickly, she shoved the papers back behind the drawer and grabbed her cleaning cloth. Mrs. Patterson, the strict household manager, appeared in the doorway. "Nia, what's taking so long in here?" Mrs. Patterson's cold voice cut through the silence. "Sorry, just being thorough with Mr. Reed's antiques," Nia replied, forcing her voice to stay steady. Mrs. Patterson's eyes narrowed as she scanned the room. "Well, hurry up. The kitchen needs attention." As Mrs. Patterson's heels clicked away down the hall, Nia's mind raced. She needed proof that would stick. She needed someone in power to see what was happening. But how could a maid get a wealthy businessman to listen to her accusations against his trusted household manager? Then a desperate idea formed in her mind. It was crazy, but it might be the only way to make him understand what his staff really went through every day. What would you do if you discovered your employer was stealing from hardworking people like you? Drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories that expose the truth about how the other half lives. Jonathan Reed looked up from his morning coffee, surprised to see Nia standing nervously in his dining room doorway. In 3 years of employment, she had never approached him directly. "Mr. Reed, sir, might I have a word with you?" Nia's voice was soft but determined. "Of course, Nia. Please, sit down." Jonathan gestured to the chair across from him. Nia remained standing, twisting her cleaning cloth in her hands. "Sir, I have an unusual request. I need you to wear a maid's uniform and work alongside us for 1 week." Jonathan nearly choked on his coffee. "I'm sorry, what?" "I know how it sounds, sir. But there are things happening in your household that you need to see firsthand. Things that affect good people who work hard for you every day." The earnestness in her dark eyes caught his attention. Jonathan had built his fortune on reading people, and something in Nia's expression told him this wasn't a joke or some elaborate prank. "Nia, I appreciate your creativity, but surely you can just tell me whatever concerns you have. With respect, sir, sometimes seeing is believing. 1 week. Just 1 week of doing the work we do, experiencing what we experience. Then you'll understand everything." Jonathan studied her face. There was desperation there, but also hope. In 3 years, he had barely noticed the quiet young woman who cleaned his home. Now she stood before him asking for something so outlandish it almost made sense in its boldness. "And if I agree to this strange request, what exactly would I learn?" "The truth, sir. About your household. About the people who serve you. About things that have been hidden from you." Something in her tone made Jonathan pause. He had always prided himself on being a fair employer, but when was the last time he had actually paid attention to how his household was run? "All right, Nia. I accept your proposal. 1 week." The relief that flooded Nia's face was immediate and overwhelming. "Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. I promise you won't regret this decision." The next morning, Jonathan stood in his guest bedroom, staring at the black and white maid's uniform Nia had provided. The dress looked impossibly small, and he wondered how he had gotten himself into this situation. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. "Mr. Reed, it's Nia. May I come in?" "Yes, come in. Though I'm not sure how I'm supposed to fit into this." Nia entered carrying a larger uniform and smiled. "I anticipated that, sir. I borrowed this from my cousin who works for a family across town." Jonathan accepted the uniform with gratitude. "Thank you for thinking ahead. There are some basic rules we need to go over before you start," Nia said, pulling out a small notebook. "First, we start at 6 in the morning. Second, We address Mrs. Patterson as at all times. Third, we don't speak unless spoken to when she's around. That seems rather strict. It is, sir. But if you want to really understand our daily experience, you need to follow the same rules we do. For the next hour, Nia taught Jonathan the basics of housekeeping. How to properly dust furniture without damaging delicate surfaces. How to mop floors efficiently. How to fold linens to Mrs. Patterson's exacting standards. Jonathan found himself struggling with tasks that looked simple when others did them. His hands, accustomed to signing contracts and shaking hands in boardrooms, fumbled with the cleaning supplies. Don't worry, sir. It takes time to learn. We'll start you in the guest wing where Mrs. Patterson rarely goes. That way you can practice without pressure. Nia, why are you helping me like this? What's in it for you? She paused in demonstrating how to properly clean a mirror. Sometimes, sir, the only way to fix a problem is to help the right person see it clearly. And you think I'm the right person? I hope so, sir. I really hope so. At 6 in the morning, Jonathan stood in the servants' hallway wearing the maid's uniform, feeling more out of place than he had ever felt in his life. The other staff members stared at him in confusion until Nia quickly introduced him as Janet, her cousin from out of town, filling in temporarily. Mrs. Patterson barely glanced at him during the morning briefing. New girl, you'll be working the guest wing. Stay out of the main areas until you learn proper procedures. Yes, Jonathan replied, surprised by how small his voice sounded. The next 8 hours were the most physically demanding of Jonathan's life. His back ached from bending over to scrub baseboards. His knees hurt from kneeling to clean under furniture. His hands grew raw from the cleaning chemicals. But what struck him most was watching the other staff members. Despite their obvious exhaustion, they helped each other. When Carmen, the elderly cook, struggled to lift a heavy pot, 2 housekeepers immediately came to her aid. When young Marcus accidentally broke a glass, the others quickly cleaned it up before Mrs. Patterson could notice. During their brief lunch break, Jonathan sat in the small staff room, listening to conversations he had never heard before. My daughter needs new school clothes, but I don't know where I'll find the money, whispered one housekeeper. I've been working double shifts just to make rent, said another. Jonathan realized these were people struggling to survive on wages he paid without thinking. People who cared for his home with dedication while worrying about their own basic needs. When Nia found him during the break, she noticed his thoughtful expression. How are you holding up, sir? I'm learning a lot, Nia. More than I expected. We're just getting started, she said gently. Tomorrow you'll see more. As the day ended and Jonathan finally removed the uniform, his entire body ached. But his mind was wide awake, processing everything he had observed about the people who worked in his own home. By his 3rd day as Janet, Jonathan had developed a routine. He arrived early, worked quietly, and observed everything around him. What he saw began to disturb him deeply. Mrs. Patterson treated the staff with cold efficiency, often assigning extra tasks without additional pay. She criticized their work harshly but never acknowledged their efforts. Jonathan watched her reduce Carmen to tears over a slightly overcooked meal, then turn around and serve that same meal to him at dinner, claiming the cook was exceptional. The staff worked 10-hour days with only a 30-minute break. They cleaned his massive home from top to bottom, maintained his gardens, and managed his laundry, all while being paid wages that barely covered their basic living expenses. During his lunch break, Jonathan overheard a conversation that made his blood run cold. Mrs. Patterson says we're getting a pay cut next month, whispered Maria, one of the housekeepers. Says the household budget is tight. How can the budget be tight? Asked another. Mr. Reed just bought another expensive car. Jonathan felt sick. His household budget was not tight. He paid Mrs. Patterson a generous management fee specifically to ensure his staff was well compensated. After work, Nia walked with him to the garden where they could speak privately. You're starting to see it, aren't you, sir? Nia, are you and the others being paid fairly? She looked down at her hands. We're grateful for our jobs, sir. That's not what I asked. Are you being paid what you're worth? Sir, with respect, most of us can't afford to ask questions like that. We need these jobs to survive. Jonathan realized that his staff was trapped. They couldn't complain about unfair treatment because they desperately needed their employment. And he had been completely unaware of their situation because he trusted Mrs. Patterson to handle everything fairly. "Nia, what exactly did you discover that made you ask me to do this?" She met his eyes directly. "Sir, I think you need to see the proof for yourself. Tomorrow, I'll show you what I found." Are you as shocked as Jonathan about what's happening under his own roof? What would you do in his situation? Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to see how this story unfolds. The next evening, Nia led Jonathan to a quiet corner of the garden where they could speak freely. The late afternoon sun cast gentle shadows across the path as they sat on a stone bench. "Sir, before I show you what I discovered, I need you to understand something about me and why this matters so much." Jonathan turned to face her fully. Over the past few days, he had come to see Nia not just as an employee, but as an intelligent, caring woman who looked out for others even when it put her at risk. "I started working for you 3 years ago when my mother was diagnosed with heart disease. The medical bills were overwhelming, and my younger brother, Andre, was starting college. This job was supposed to pay enough to help us get by." Nia paused, her voice growing softer. "My mother worked as a maid her whole life, sir. She taught me that honest work deserves honest pay. She said if you do your job well and treat people with respect, they should treat you the same way. Your mother sounds like a wise woman." "She is. She's also getting sicker, and Andre is struggling to stay in school because we can't afford his books and supplies. Every dollar matters in our house, sir." Jonathan felt a tightness in his chest. He spent more on a single business lunch than Nia's family probably saw in a month. "When I found those papers in your study, I realized we weren't just struggling because times are hard. We were struggling because someone was stealing from us. Stealing from my mother's medicine money. Stealing from my brother's education." The pain in her voice was unmistakable, and Jonathan found himself wanting to fix everything immediately. "Nia, I had no idea. I trusted Mrs. Patterson to handle all household management fairly." "I know, sir. That's why I couldn't just come to you with accusations. I needed you to see how we live, how we work, how we struggle. I needed you to care about us as people, not just as workers." Jonathan reached out and gently touched her hand. "I do care, Nia. More than I realized was possible." Something shifted between them in that moment. The formal barrier of employer and employee began to dissolve, replaced by something deeper and more personal. "Tomorrow, sir, I'll show you the evidence. But I want you to know that asking you to do this wasn't just about the money. It was about dignity. About being seen and valued." Jonathan nodded, understanding that Nia had given him a gift far greater than he had initially realized. On Friday morning, Jonathan followed Nia to his study during the lunch break. His hands were steady now as she showed him how to move the desk drawer to reveal the hidden papers behind it. "I found these by accident last Monday," Nia explained, pulling out a folder. "Look at these payroll records." Jonathan examined the documents with growing anger. The records clearly showed that his household management company received full payment for staff wages, but the actual payments to workers were significantly lower. "This shows I pay Mrs. Patterson's company $3,000 per week for staff wages," Jonathan said, his voice tight with control. "But we only receive about $1,800 total among all of us," Nia replied. "The rest just disappears." Jonathan flipped through more pages and found additional evidence of the scheme. False overtime reports that inflated the management company's billing. Fake supply receipts for cleaning materials that were never purchased. Bills for maintenance services that were actually performed by unpaid staff members. "Nia, this is systematic theft. Mrs. Patterson has been stealing thousands of dollars every month." "Yes, sir. And not just from you. From us. That money should have been our wages." Jonathan continued reading and discovered the scheme went even deeper. Mrs. Patterson had been selling household items and keeping the profits. She had been charging the staff for their uniforms, which Jonathan had already paid for. She had even been deducting money from their paychecks for training fees that never existed. "How long has this been going on?" "Based on what I found, at least 2 years. Maybe longer. Jonathan calculated quickly in his head. The total theft was probably close to $100,000. Sir, there's something else. Mrs. Patterson has been telling us that you specifically requested we work longer hours for the same pay. She said you were considering laying people off if productivity didn't improve. Jonathan felt physically sick. Nia, I never said anything like that. I've always wanted my staff to be treated well. We didn't know that, sir. We thought you saw us as just expenses to be minimized. The betrayal cut deep. Mrs. Patterson had not only stolen money but had also damaged his reputation with people whose respect he was beginning to value deeply. What do we do now? Nia asked. Jonathan stood up, his jaw set with determination. Now we make this right. All of it. Saturday morning brought unexpected danger to their carefully maintained secret. Mrs. Patterson arrived earlier than usual and found Jonathan in the hallway, still wearing his maid's uniform. Janet, isn't it? You've been working here all week, but I don't have any record of your employment paperwork. Jonathan's heart raced, but he kept his voice steady. Nia was handling that for me. Family emergency kept me busy. Mrs. Patterson's eyes narrowed suspiciously. There's something familiar about you. Have we met before? No, I would remember. Mrs. Patterson circled him slowly, studying his face. You seem awfully confident for someone in your position. Most new staff members are more deferential. Jonathan forced himself to look down at his hands. Sorry, Still learning the proper way to behave. Indeed. Well, Janet, I have special tasks for you today. You'll be cleaning Mr. Reed's personal study. Every surface, every drawer, every piece of furniture must be spotless. Jonathan's blood ran cold. If Mrs. Patterson suspected something, sending him to clean the study where the evidence was hidden could be a trap. Yes, As he walked toward the study, Nia appeared beside him in the hallway. Sir, this is dangerous. She's testing you. I know. But we can't back down now. What if she discovers who you really are? Then we'll deal with it. But Nia, I want you to stay away from the study today. If this goes wrong, I don't want you to get in trouble. Sir, with respect, we're in this together now. Jonathan looked at this remarkable woman who had risked everything to expose the truth and protect her fellow workers. Somewhere over the past week, his feelings for her had grown beyond professional respect into something much deeper. Nia, when this is over, there's something I need to tell you. Sir. Later. First, let's finish what we started. They spent the morning carefully cleaning the study while being extra cautious around the hidden evidence. Every time footsteps approached, Jonathan's heart pounded, but they managed to avoid another confrontation with Mrs. Patterson. By afternoon, however, the suspicious household manager was clearly planning something. Sunday morning, Jonathan arrived at work to find Mrs. Patterson waiting in the staff room with a security guard. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a problem. Someone has been in Mr. Reed's study, tampering with his personal papers. The staff exchanged worried glances. Jonathan kept his expression neutral, but his pulse quickened. Now, I don't want to accuse anyone unfairly, so I'm going to give the responsible party a chance to confess. The room remained silent. Very well. Janet, step forward. Jonathan moved to the front of the room, aware that Nia was watching with barely concealed fear. You're new here, which makes you the most likely suspect. Empty your pockets. Jonathan complied, producing only the basic items any staff member would carry. Strip search, Mrs. Patterson ordered the security guard. That won't be necessary, came a familiar voice from the doorway. Everyone turned to see Jonathan Reed, dressed in his usual business attire, striding into the room. The staff gasped in confusion, looking between the two identical men. Mrs. Patterson's face went white. Mr. Reed, how are there two of you? Jonathan began removing the wig and makeup that had disguised his appearance. Because I've been working undercover in my own household for the past week. The room erupted in shocked murmurs as the staff realized their employer had been working alongside them as Janet. Mrs. Patterson, you're fired. Effective immediately. And you'll be hearing from my lawyers about the systematic theft I've uncovered. Mrs. Patterson's shock quickly turned to desperate anger. You can't prove anything. It's my word against yours. Actually, I can prove everything. Jonathan pulled out the folder of evidence. Financial records, false billing statements, payroll theft. It's all documented. Sir, Nia stepped forward, her voice clear and strong. I have photographs of additional evidence, and I've been keeping detailed records of the wage theft for months. Mrs. Patterson looked around the room at the faces of the staff she had mistreated and exploited. Finding no sympathy anywhere, she finally spoke. Fine. But don't think this little charade makes you some kind of hero. You're still just a rich man playing games. You're wrong, Jonathan replied firmly. This week taught me that these people aren't just employees. They're hard-working individuals who deserve respect, fair wages, and honest treatment.